Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Tony Pascolla is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out Tony's first appearance on episode 369 of Boundless Body Radio. Tony Pascolla is a physical education teacher, sport coach, strong First Kettlebell instructor, personal trainer, and carnivore and fasting coach at Revero, a coaching company focused on helping people successfully implement a carnivore diet. Tony had struggled with his weight for most of his life. As a young kid, as a high school wrestler, and as an adult. Tony was vegan for 2 years before realizing that it was not sustainable. He eventually found the ketogenic diet and then transitioned to a carnivore diet. He has worked to be a fat-adapted endurance athlete and completed an Ironman in 2021, primarily on a carnivore diet. That's amazing. So cool. Based in Chicago, Illinois, he works with clients in person, both one-on-one sessions and group coaching, and also works virtually with clients, specializing in strength training and nutrition. He is the host of the very successful Primal Foundations Podcast, where I was honored enough to be hosted as the very first guest. Luckily for him and his amazing podcast, he has found much better people to host since then. Tony is most active on Instagram at Tony_Primal Foundations. Tony Pascolla, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
It is a privilege to be back. And I told you when you were on my first episode, I'm like, if I'm going to have my first episode, the guest has to be Casey Ruff.
Dude, it meant so much. It was so fun to go back and listen to that episode. And I'm very proud of where you are. You and I did a coaching call a few years ago. You, again, I just told you this before, you were the most prepared person I've ever coached. I did nothing in that session. You already knew exactly what you were going to do. You did tons of research. And to see that now you have the Primal Foundations name, you've got the website, you've got a podcast that you've done. Your guests, dude, the people you've had on your show, holy smokes, like you've gotten some big names on there.
You're as surprised as I am. I'm like, okay, you're going to come on my show? Awesome. Like 5 people might listen, but hey, man, awesome. And everybody's been super great and just fantastic. I can't be thankful enough.
Dr. Bill Schindler, Dr. Philip Ovadia, Vinny Tortorich, Coach Bronson, like so many amazing people. What have been some highlights of your podcasting so far?
Man, I guess it would be, those names that you named for sure. Just the variety, I guess, like, Bill Schindler, archaeologist, Dr. Ovadia, a heart surgeon. I've had the privilege of having Fabio Zonin, who's a strong first master instructor, and Brett Jones, who's a strong first master instructor. And I just can't believe, like, to me, these people are like rock stars. They're like to rock stars, and they're willing to come on the podcast, and just the dialogue that we're having, and we're talking about all different things. And it could be a carnivore, it could be a keto diet, it could be strength training, it could be stress management, it could be all of those things. And my goal is just to have these conversations with people. One, because I'm interested, but two, there's been people that reached out and said, hey, I caught this episode. I really like this. This has helped me. And that's actually keeping me going more and more and more, of just having different perspectives of people, whether whatever their diet is, whatever their strength training program is, whatever it is, but what are they doing that's going to help them become physically fit and metabolically healthy, and share that with the world.
I absolutely love that. Did you have any kind of like imposter syndrome when you first got started? Or I guess I could describe like the way I felt was like, what could I possibly say that somebody else isn't already saying that's like way better than the way I could say it? Like, did you have any of that when you first got started?
I don't know if you've done this. Have you listened to your first episodes, like your first 10?
Cringy.
Very cringy. I'm like, there's a lot of ahs and uhs and pauses and ums, and it just comes in time. It's just like anything else. We have to get out of the comfort zone and be okay with messing up. And when I mess up now, I don't even edit it out. I'm just like, I was so worried, like there's going to be so much editing and all this. I'm like, it's fine. It's all good. But yeah, the imposter syndrome is, I'm just even thinking back to when I first started my Instagram page, because that's not my personal, that's my like coaching Instagram page. What am I putting out there? Are they going to like it? And you're watching, is it doing well? And now I'm just like, post and ghost and just whatever you put out there, Some people like it, some people won't. It'll get hits, it won't. It's okay. And not to like feel so attached to the success of how many followers you have and how many likes you have, because you'll have some reels that blow up and you're like 10,000 views. Hell yeah. And then you do something else you think is going to be great. 500. Okay. Not as good. But it's one of those things that you got to get over the hump. And I was never the person to like, it's people think I'm like this. I am eccentric a little bit, and I'm an extrovert and a little bit, but like I don't like taking pictures. I don't like posting things about myself. And that's things I'm not a fan of. I'm just that's not comfortable for me. But I understand those are things that you're gonna have to do to reach people and to make the connections and for people to scroll through your page and kind of get the information you're putting out there. So yeah, it's a little cringy at first, but now I just don't even care. It's just
That's
whatever.
awesome. Good for you. I love the term unattached action, doing something where you're not really thinking about the outcome. You're just putting it out there. And it's such a great lesson for everybody out there to learn is like, you got to just do something. I remember that from our conversation on our show before. You said the same thing. It's like, you just got to do something. It's not going to be perfect. You have no control over the algorithms and who it gets to. It's just a number at the end of the day, and it's just really whether you connected with somebody or not. But if you never put it out there, you'll never know whether it helps somebody or not. So just getting something out there, I think, is amazing. Even preparing for this conversation, you're my friend. I know we're going to talk about. It's going to be awesome. It's just a great conversation between two buddies. I still get nervous. I still wonder if I'm going to ask the perfect questions, or if I'm going to say a million times, or if I'm going to goof up, the day of the week or months, or what do you like stupid stuff all the time. I always get nervous about it. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like, you just got to get it out there and just realize that none of us are perfect, and just putting something out there is better than trying to wait until you have the perfect thing to do. You know what I mean?
And the best is when you prepare, like you could be prepared as you want. And then all of a sudden you have this list of questions that you want to hit and you hit them. And then you look at the time, you're thinking this is going to be an hour episode. You're only like 30 minutes in. Now you ran out of questions. You just kind of breeze through it way too fast. And you're like, whoa, now on the fly, you're going to have to like think about, okay, what do people want to hear? And you're going to have to like just pull information and think about different questions on the fly. And that to me is the hardest. That is the hardest thing to do.
That is hard, and every guest is a little bit different. Like, some people you can tell, like, okay, at 30-40 minutes I'm going to have to like come up with something different that I didn't you know want to talk about or think we were going to talk about, and you're going to have to pull other topics out. And there's other guests that you have on, which is great, but they like 5 minutes in, like, oh, I'm only going to be able to ask like maybe 3 or 4 questions. I need to be really choosy because this person is on a roll. They're going to go through exactly what they want to say. And again, I think it's totally fine, but you kind of have to adjust to what your guests are willing to do and willing to talk about.
Yeah, I like I love to sit back and once people get on their rants and going and it's just like, yes, yes, like I love this. This is great. And they're like Coach Bronson, like I'll ask him one question about something and he'll dive into like five different like aspects of it. And one, it's like one, yeah, you fill in the time, but two, I'm like, whoa, like this could be a 5 hour episode. I know I got to get him back on too. And because the one thing that I didn't talk about with him, which he wanted to, is like, we want to talk about different strength training modalities and things like that. We never even got that. But I'm like, great, you're coming back, buddy. Like,
Part
just
two.
that's a part tour.
I love that. Yeah, I've been able to meet Coach Bronson in person. He's such a great guy. That's a cool part about this community. Like, when you run into Dr. Bill Schindler, you run into Dr. Philip Ovadia, and all these guys, they're just as cool in person as they are like the way they put themselves out there. So it's a really fun community. Have you had any interesting moments in your podcast where maybe somebody talked about something that maybe you didn't like agree with, or was something like a little bit awkward? Have you ever had those moments in your show?
I've had a couple different ones, some people in it, especially like some of my podcasts are just focused on nutrition and some are like strength training or what have you. And, they'll have their things that I'm not 100% in agreement with, but that's what they like to do if they want to do more of um, like a vegetarian diet and they want to, or a Mediterranean diet or things like that. Again, from my perspective, for me, those things don't work for me. And they feel really good doing those things. And who am I to judge, and who am I to tell them like, no, 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 carnivore is the way, or things like that. You have to have a primal diet. That's not up for me to tell that person. But if that's something, if they're feeling good and they're healthy, I have no qualms with that at all. And I think that's where people get that dogmaticness of, oh, well, what about this? Like, you're not getting this, you're not getting that. Like, and I'm not judging you. I'm not judging the person that's across from me who's taking their time to come on my show. We'll talk about their diet. We'll talk about my diet and things that they think are beneficial. But even if I don't agree with them, I'm not here to chastise anybody. I'm here to get information out to people. And then I've had some people who, a few that have shared their stories with me that are, I've had a couple of people that have struggled with cancer, and they give their perspective. If I have had somebody, I got an episode coming out where Sam Chacha, she's a awesome kettlebell coach, and she talks about her story and journey going through breast cancer, and that's going to come out a little bit. And she got emotional, and it's like, really, like, that's a difficult thing. You have somebody across from you that's getting very emotional, and that this is going to be going out into the world, but being there and being able to comfort them while they're going through this, and also applauding them for sharing, because that is something that could not only affect just a few people, that affects a ton of people. And if somebody tunes in and they see their journey and how they overcame it, that is an inspiration for that one listener. Even if it's one listener who gets the inspiration from that, that makes the podcast worth it. But it's going through those, like, those are some tough situations to go through.
Wow. I love that perspective. I've recently had two separate guests come on the show, one who put cancer into remission and another one who basically put mental disorder into remission. And both did it with a plant-based diet. Both admitted that they needed to kind of work more animal proteins into their diet. But it's tough because I feel like if you're in the carnivore space, you want to be, talking to those people, and you don't want to lose that audience. And I'm really conscious about that. But at the same time, I feel the same way. Like, if somebody got to a certain outcome by doing something different than me, it's like you said, like, who am I to judge what you're doing? Like, if you did that with a plant-based diet, that's really amazing. And talk about emotional moments. This one woman, we're going to release this episode here pretty soon. She talks about how she put her bipolar into remission by doing a ketogenic plant-based diet with eggs. Eventually, she had to work in eggs, and she works with the Bazuki family and their group. And they just recently got a letter a few months ago from a mother that said, "Hey, like, you guys are doing amazing work. Keep doing what you're doing. My 18-year-old son was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he had started changing his diet, but this message hadn't sunk in until it was too late, and he ended up taking his own life because his mental disorder was too much for him." And dude, I'm like talking about this with her. I'm like, waterworks. She's waterworks. Like, so emotional. Like, this message has to get out regardless of whether you are fully carnivore or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we both, we had Keto 50, Eric Reynolds, tell his story, you know, um, getting wounded in, the line of duty, and how traumatic that was. There's people that go through that all the time. And this is a space where we, as like coaches, like, take a step back, and I got to be, one, their friend, too, because they're sharing that with me, which is amazing. But being there for them and supporting them, and just spreading this information of, there are going to be really hard times. It's okay. Your back's going to be against the wall, but the biggest thing is, even though your back's against the wall, you're taking one step forward one day, and then one more step, and then one more step. And eventually you're going to be running again. So that's the biggest thing, is just showing that people, there is light at the end of the tunnel, whether you have autoimmune issues. Trevor Griffith, was on the podcast, and he talked about, he had SIRS and all these things, and damn near death on his, basically a deathbed, and literally with diet and perseverance just changed his whole life around. And I'm like, wow, like, people need to know this information. But yeah, it gets emotional.
Yeah, it definitely does. I kept something in the introduction. I hesitated to keep it in there, but I did keep it in there. And it was all about, you are a certified coach through Revero doing carnivore and fasting coaching. It's a company that I got certified with as well. It's how you and I came to get to know each other. Since our first conversation, the coaching platform has been shut down on Revero. What have been your thoughts about that? I think you and I kind of talked like we're doing this. It's fun. We get to meet people all over. We make very little money doing it, but it's engaging and fun to kind of help people out there. Now that it's kind of gone, like how are you feeling about that?
I one, I like their old name first, Meet RX. I thought that was
MeterX is
cooler. I
better.
don't know why they got rid of that, but I know that Sean Baker they've made it a public company now. I think I'm correct there. It's like a public company, and
Mm.
they're more focused on the aspect of treating patients with autoimmune issues or some medical issues versus the whole I need to lose some weight or I have a plateau kind of thing. And that's what I get from it. I remember getting the email saying like, "Oh, this whole coaching program or platform's going to be gone." And it's a little bit of a shame because that was a big hub, I would say, where people can pick and choose. That's how I found you. I went through a couple coaches on there and I got some great information. Some coaches I weren't the greatest, hence I'm like, all right, I got to find somebody really good. Casey Ruff. All right, here we go.
Jeez.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where because it was such a central hub and there was like a search program and you can like find people who want to do like endurance training, find people for fasting, find people for this, for that. It made it more accessible. Now it's kind of put on the coach to put their information out and to be more marketable across different platforms so that you can get that funnel of people to find you. So that's the hardest thing. I get why they did it, but just the avenue of like it's basically a Google search for carnivore coaches versus it's one place. Now you got like just people everywhere. And if I'm a client or a prospective client and I really want to work for somebody, that's just a little bit more work on me to find the right coach. So that'd be my biggest qualm with it. But I mean, I did get my certification from there, went through all the stuff. It's really great. All that access, if you were a coach, you still have access to those documents and those files, and I'll look at those some time to time. If I know I have like a carnivore call coming up with somebody who is very interested, I might look back at some of that information just to see, if there's anything that they may have this certain autoimmune issue, and I'll go through all of that information and look that up. So it's a tool for me, but it just kind of stinks that it's gone now.
Kind of stinks. That's a good way to summarize it. It kind of stinks. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun to meet people in Dubai and in Scotland and in Australia and all these people all over the world. You're right. It was like the central hub where you could go, you could read about the coaches, and you could find, you're probably going to get good information from everybody, but you could find the one that most aligned with you. And now that that's gone, it seems to be a little bit more diluted, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, we know this for you is kind of a side hustle. This isn't your primary job. So when you came on last time, you told us a little bit about your personal story and how you came to want to coach people. But if you could you remind us a little bit of why health became such a central theme of what you wanted to do, not only for your career, but also as a side hustle with coaching?
Yeah, I started out like when I was a kid, and you mentioned it in the intro, like I've struggled with weight all my life. I've yo-yoed up and down. When I was real young, just super overweight. I like sports, I like all those things. The diet was the biggest thing. The diet in the household. When you're a kid, you don't really get to choose as much as what you want to eat. And my parents, coming from an Italian family, like we're always eating big meals. Um, just we have access to the pantry, which is Pop Tart style. If I want a Pop Tart, I can have it. I want Oreos, I can have it. They're all in the pantry. And my parents didn't, they're boomers. They don't really know too much about dieting. My dad smoked like a chimney. My mom smokes till this day. My dad actually had a triple bypass and kind of, one, his nutrition wasn't very good, but two, was just been a smoker for years and years and years. So, in the household, didn't get a lot of education at school, don't get a lot of education on nutrition. And then I just started trying to work. I said, I got to change something. I'm in seventh grade and I keep going through pants because I'm getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And that for a kid is detrimental, like because you don't want to be the kiddo that can't compete with the other kids in like physical activity. You also don't want to be the one that's overweight. It's just that social aspect too. So I just said, you know what, I'm gonna start running. That was like the big thing I started was running. Started to lift weights, was doing it absolutely wrong. But just going to the gym and just trying to get healthy and found wrestling, loved it, but that kind of exacerbated my issue with food. Back then I lived to eat. Like anytime that I could, it was all about big meals. It was all about going out with your friends to eat fast food. Even into college, and even as I was going to be in physical education, I wasn't eating right. There's no way. I'm going to Subway. I'm going to McDonald's. I'm going to all these things in college, and it wasn't until I got into my early 20s that I went to this one gym, and there was the big push was become vegan, and that's when oh, it's escaping me now. Forks over knives. Forks over knives
Works
was
over knives.
big. Yeah, and then there's like the engine. Is it Rip Esselstyn? The Engine
Esselstyn,
Nine.
yep.
Yeah, Engine Nine diet came out. Those books. We went to one of the vegan as like a group. We ran a workout for them, and we went to this one convention. It was like a Forks Over Knives convention. They were talking about all these things. I was 2 feet in. I'm like plant based all the way because I was feeling good. I was losing weight. I'm like, oh man, like this is the way to go. And that's when I was very dogmatic. I was telling people, I'm like, can't eat meat. Human body doesn't process meat. It's unnatural. We don't. We are people who eat plants. That's it. Like that's the only thing. And all of a sudden, about 2 years into it, I started gaining weight again. Started kind of losing the hair. My gut was just absolutely wrecked. I was eating so much quinoa and tortillas and hummus, and my shopping bill every week was like a few $100s because I couldn't eat enough. I was just eating
Wow.
spinach and all these things. I was like, just like this is crazy. And I had blepharitis in my eyes, so it was just like this autoimmune issue where your eyelids flare up, and they just said, "Oh, put hot compress on it." Doesn't work. I've tried it. Then they got me on antibiotics, which suppressed it, but also messed me up. Like being on doxycycline for long periods of time, it really messes with your gut. You don't feel good. Your immune system gets dropped. So I was getting sick a lot. It was terrible. And then that's when I started hearing keto. And I'm like, let me try this keto because I always liked red meat. I just thought it was bad. Just for everybody's telling me that is the narrative. So I went keto for a couple years. Didn't do it perfect, but I kind of kept the weight down still. Was doing cheat meals here and there, all these things, but I felt better. I felt better because I was just eating meat and vegetables and butter and heavy cream, and I felt more satisfied in my meal choices. So I didn't have to eat as much. And that's when that Sean Baker episode came out. Everybody was talking about it. I'm like, let me give this carnivore thing a whirl. Let me give it 30 days. And I just felt so much better. I wasn't thinking about, then that's the big piece. And I tell everybody, number one, if you're gonna take anything from carnivore, your relationship with food changes. I don't chase this sugar high. I don't chase like I need to have dessert because yeah, it's the end of the meal. I have to have dessert. I don't need to have these sweets and treats and treat myself. I don't look at food that way. Like this food is sustenance for me to live and thrive and survive. And I don't need um to pack 7 meals a day. Like there's people that go with like freaking igloo coolers of food every day. I can't even eat that much anymore. I'm like, how are they eating so much? It's just like it's wild to me. And now I eat if I want. If I get in situations where there's food and it's like not a healthy option, I'm totally cool with not eating. Like I'm fine. I'm just making a decision as an adult saying like that's something I don't want. I could still tell you to this day the last 2 times I had ice cream and the last time I had pizza. Like I know
Wow.
the exact dates that I had ice cream in the last 2 times and the last time I had pizza because we saw the new Ninja Turtles movie. So we went out to go see the animated movie with some friends, and I was like, you know what? We went out to dinner afterwards. I'm like, you know what? In lieu of the Ninja Turtles, let's get some. They had like these brick oven margarita pizzas. I'm like, let's get pizza, and I was cool with that. I felt hungover the next day. Like
Yeah.
my gut, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't feel good. But I made a decision as an adult and I understand what's happening in my body. But those are things I don't crave anymore. And my just the freedom I have every day of I don't worry about food. That's one. Everybody's life is stressed out. Everybody has their own things going on. The last thing that I want to think about, like I'm busy all day. The last thing I want to think about is food. Like I have meat in the fridge. I got meat in the freezer. If I want to eat, I'll eat. If I'm need to do something or something comes up and I have to miss my window of what I was supposed to eat, doesn't affect me. I don't get this hangry. I've had clients on the call like, I just get so hungry. I just get so hungry. Well, it's just because you're eating junk and like you're getting very little nutrients and your body just wants more, more, more. So that's like a big piece of this is I am completely free of this attachment to food, which I grew up with. And that is a very long-winded answer to your question. But no, it was a big process to go through it since I was a little kid to now. I'm 35. I finally am happy with the way I look. I'm happy with the way I feel. I'm not a shredded model. Like I'm not like God's gift to this earth, like a chiseled athlete. But I'm so happy with where I'm at, and I wouldn't change it. I don't want to change my diet to get just thinner and skinnier and just spend hours in the gym to look this way to impress people. And I think that's a aspect of that's my like the why of why are you going to the gym? Why are you eating what you're eating? And a lot of times if you pull back the layers, it's because they want to impress people. And impress people they don't even care about, you know?
Yeah. I absolutely love that. You have so much in common with somebody like Dr. Bill Schindler, who to this day, in his 50s, as a doctor, archaeologist, very successful, still has a bit of body dysmorphia over what he suffered through with wrestling. Same kind of thing. Like he grew up like you and me. Like we bought husky clothes, and I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I knew it wasn't like that great. And you kind of struggle with that. And I think everybody in this field probably has a little bit of body dysmorphia to some degree and is always like thinking about how they're looking or the things they're eating and all that stuff, maybe to an obsessive kind of a level. But what you're describing as far as food freedom, it's so wonderful. It trumps all that other stuff, like you said, like how you look, how you impress people. At some point you start to realize that everybody only cares about how they look anyway, so nobody's noticing anybody else anyway. It's not even like a thing. Everybody's so worried about themselves. So the food freedom thing, again, when I'm hearing your story and all the things you've gone through, it's so awesome to get past the point of like I need to eat and I need to eat certain foods and I need that dessert versus like it's kind of like take it or leave it. It's so different.
My favorite thing is when not my favorite thing, but the one thing I get is like if we're out to eat with friends or whatever. Family's the worst for me. They're better now, but when I first started carnivore, they're like, well, because they seen me do vegan and they thought like, oh my God, that's gotta be so hard and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, it's great, it's great. And now I like did a complete 180. Now I'm carnivore. They're like, that's gotta be very unhealthy. I was like, no, I'm good. I feel great, all these things. But we go out to family dinners and like a dessert will come out, whatever, and I'll just choose not to have it, whatever. And they're like, and everybody's eating their desserts. They're like, this has to be torture for you. I'm like, no, I'm I'm good. They're like, this has to be so tough. I'm like, no, I'm good. I just know if I have it, my stomach's gonna get all jacked up. Like I'm making a decision to not feel shitty. Uh, but there are times when my father recently got remarried, and the next day we all went out to like this brunch thing. And it was like a breakfast place. I had like eggs, bacon, whatever, like just the normal. My normal for me. I'm like, can you cook it in butter, please? Thank you. Because I always ask for them to cook it in butter and not oil. Is a pro tip. And one of my aunts brought these pink cookies, and dude, like there was it's my grandma. My grandmother's not with us anymore, but it was my grandmother's recipe that like they brought from Italy. My cousin Mary, who was her age, had passed away. She used to make them, and so they made them and they brought them to this brunch, and I was like, I'm having a cookie. Like this is my childhood right here. Like I'm gonna have a cookie. And then I get as soon as I had a cookie, oh, you can eat that? And I'm like, it's just like this automatic, like it's either you're carnivore or you're not. You're either on a, this healthy life, journey or you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is a pink cookie the recipe from my grandmother. Like, yes, I'm having this freaking pink cookie and I'm gonna enjoy it. And even if my stomach hurts, the nostalgia is just worth it alone. But we get into those again, this huge split. It's like, I haven't had a sip of alcohol since Christmas Eve. And if anybody listened to that Coach Bronson episode, that's one of the big things that I want to talk to him about because he had his own experience with taking out alcohol and the effects it had for him. And for me, my sleep, everything it's fantastic. I haven't had a sip of alcohol since Christmas Eve. Remember I had a beer with my cousins or whatever. Is that to say I'm never gonna have alcohol again? I'm never gonna have a glass of wine at a dinner? No. But it's something that was a struggle for me. I've taken it back. But the people that are around you need to respect your decisions and not get so dogmatic as well. And you, as a person on this journey, you have to also be like ready to say something. Like you have to be ready to defend a little bit. Just be like, oh, I'm good. Uh, you know, oh, you need vegetables. Ah, I'm good. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I try to avoid a vegetable if I can. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, I feel good. I feel good. I sleep good. I looking good. Just like whatever. Just say something with some confidence and then they leave you alone.
Yeah.
Just you gotta be confident in what you're doing. You gotta have the belief in it. And if you're feeling, just tell them, oh, I feel really good doing this. So that's why I'm gonna do it. What are they gonna say? Oh, don't do it, Ned. No, those people are gonna be around you. They're gonna ask questions. They're gonna think like, oh, you can cheat here, you can cheat there. Just stand your ground and say, I'm good. I feel good. This is really working for me. That's something I don't really need right now. And then
Yeah.
just go about your day.
That's a really good point. That happened to me yesterday, dude. We did this like charity ice skating thing like with a bunch of special needs kids, and we kind of played hockey with them, and it was really fun. And at
Nice.
the end, one of the parents of the special needs kids has a wagon full of treats and snacks and Gatorades and sodas and all the chips and whatever. And one of the moms was like, hey, do you want something to help yourself? Like, no, I'm okay, I'm fine. She looked at me like it was insane. Like, really? Like, you can have as much as you like. And I almost took it just out of like to make her not look at me like I was insane. But you're right, it is a little bit different. And you're probably like me. Like, yes, you can have the cookie. You're going to pay a price. Like, it doesn't feel that great. You're going to feel less than optimal. Is it terrible? Is it the worst thing ever? Like, no, it sucks. I don't like feeling like I have cravings. And if I deviate, I will have cravings. It'll be about a day and a half where disgusting stuff sounds amazing to me, and I just have to kind of like deal with that, or my sleep won't be as good, or my anxiety will come back a little bit. And it sucks. It's not unmanageable. Like I can get through it, but it's not what I would want to choose day to day.
When's the next Pi Day in Utah?
July 24th, Pioneer Day. Pioneer Day.
Pioneer Day. Pioneer Day.
Exactly. Oh man. Well, okay. So also since we last chatted, you have started your own branding, Primal Foundations. You started the podcast, which, like we talked about, is amazing. Tell us about Primal Foundations. Why did you choose that title? What does that mean to you?
So as I'm trying to think about like branding, what's a big thing? A big influence for sure, I have to say, was all of Mark Sesson's work. With the Primal Blueprints. I've started that whole I'm almost finished. I've been saying this for like 2 years. The
Dude,
prime, yeah, it's really hard. It's a
it's a
lot of
hard one,
stuff.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I'm almost finished with it. I know I need
Good
to
for you.
get my act together to finish because there's an aspect of that. One, it dives into a ton of science. It dives into all these different aspects of human biology that like I didn't even get this I went to school to be a physical education teacher, and I had to take these bio courses. I had to take kinesiology. I had to take all these things, and I never heard a half of this stuff. So for me, it's like I'm like going back to college, like, and it's really tough. And some of the aspects of it is like you have to reach out to other coaches who are certified through uh who are primal health coaches, and you have to like do mock interviews and stuff. I think that's just like the next piece that I have to do, but it's really, really um just it's very comprehensive in which, and I just started doing that, and I was like, I love this whole aspect of primal. I like it. Mark Sesson's whole thing of, being metabolically flexible. Now, his whole thing is not carnivore, 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 but it is a big part of it. Like if you're going through all of the lessons and courses, it's like, yeah, we thrive on animal fat, animal protein. We could have plants, but we really, in our evolution, and Bill Schindler talks about this all the time. It's like, this is animal fat and protein is what we evolved on, and what has been sustaining the human body and the race for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It just so happens now we have the industrialization of, our food, and everything's packaged, and oh, now we're getting sick and we're going to demonize meat. And that there's like pieces of that in that course that like really spoke to me. I'm like, we got to get back to basics. We have to have this primal, um, like kind of thinking of like, okay, what did we grow up with? What did we evolve on? Like, let's get back to the basics, and not really get into things that we didn't have thousands of years ago. And so that was like one piece. I was like, okay, primal. And then like I said primal foundations because my four foundations are strength, nutrition, movement, and recovery. And those are like the things that I talk to clients about all the time. So it's like these, and I tell them these are the four foundations you need to like cover your bases with to taking the steps forward to living an optimal lifestyle. So I think strength training is a big one. And everybody's like, is strength the number one? That's why it's at top. No, I just list them that way. I don't know why. Um, but they're all equally important. But I think strength, building muscle is super important for longevity. Also, the aspect of like mental fortitude, going through hard things. So strength could just, yeah, it's I want to build muscle, but it's also that mental capacity of like dealing with hard times.
Love that.
The nutrition piece is I call it a primal aligned diet. I don't think of like people that come to me for carnivore, we talk about carnivore. People that come to me and just want to like have a better nutrition outlook in like what should I eat? What's this? What's that? Okay. Let's we are going to prioritize animal protein and good fats, and we're going to have very low oxalate vegetables because for some people they just cannot not have vegetables. It's ingrained in them. This is something that they've been told all their life, and for me to be like, cut it out, like don't do it anymore. It's like, what? It's like telling me not to breathe. Like, they're like, I've been doing it since I've been knee high to the ground, man. You're going to tell me? My mother told me this. Like, so, it's something that's just, we were talking about it earlier. If we have differences with different people, like, who am I to judge them? So I call it a primal line. Like, let's get you some, like, we can still have vegetables. Let's get you low oxalate vegetables. Let's make it very smaller portions. I like to say 2/3 of your plate should be a good animal protein, which I think most, in the industry of nutrition, they want it the other way around, where they
Yeah.
only want like maybe a third or a quarter of protein. I think, what is it? They say 50 grams a day. I'm like, what? That's it?
It's insane.
You're crazy. You're crazy, man. But
It's a
get them to,
snack.
yeah. Get them to a couple pepperoni sticks. Get them to eat more animal protein to get that satiation, not fear the animal fats, is like we've been told, and keep some vegetables in there that they like, and get rid of stuff in the pantries. That's like my number one. What's in your pantries? Not much. Okay. Tell me exactly what's in your pantries. Like take your computer or phone over and just tell me what you got. And from the statement of not a lot, and then you go through it, and it's just like box after box after box after box of all these things with 1,000 ingredients, and it's not even real food at that point. I'm like, if we need to get back to basics, like this whole primal thing is getting back to just whole foods and things that have one ingredient. If you're gonna eat beef, guess what the ingredient is? Freaking beef. Like that's
Beef.
it. Yeah, that's it. And getting them to get away from eating out, eating things out of a box. You know, I talk about my sister a lot on the podcast. She's my twin, and I've got her to do more carnivore, prioritizing animal protein. She'll still do some vegetables here and there, which is great. That's way better than she used to go to Costco and buy like tons of frozen stuff and like just cook that. And then she hits me up with, "Have you ever heard of Factor, the meal plan company?" And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Yeah." And she's like, "Should I do that?" I'm like, let's standardize everything before we try to optimize something, right? I'm like, you have time to make your own food. I highly suggest instead of focusing on these microwavable things, which microwaving I'm not don't know the whole ins and outs of the science, but everybody's like, yeah, the fastest way to die is to just microwave your food every day. But
Yeah.
that's here nor there. Um, but she wanted to just automatically because she saw or she heard somebody talking about it that I need to go to this because this is helping. It's like you need to learn how to take control of your life by making your own food. And I said, "What happens when you plan out this many of those factor meal plans a day? Like I have 3 square meals or whatever it is, but you're hungry. What are you gonna do then?" "Oh, I don't know. Not eat." I'm like, "But you're hungry. Why wouldn't you eat?" And she's just like, "Oh," I'm like, "This is that your body might be telling you something that you need to listen to. Like if you're hungry, it could be because that's not enough food for you. So let's cook our own food. Let's get all the stuff out of the pantries and let's just make sure that you're taking the step in that ownership of what you're eating every day. Not because like when you dive into people's day, they'll tell you they're I'm eating this, I'm eating that, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I'm plateaued or I'm gaining weight. And then you kind of like get in their day. Well, I mean, I had a Starbucks sandwich in the morning. I had this. I had this crazy latte, whatever sugar drink. I don't even know what they're called, frappuccinos. And it's just like, oh, all these little things are just totaling up and totaling up. And you're going to feel better if you have real food, prioritize animal protein and fats. And if you're hungry, it's okay to eat. Like people get so fasting is a great tool and I like it because I can do it. But if I'm hungry, my body might be telling me like, "Hey, you had a really hard workout or something like that. I need a little bit more," and it's okay to eat, even though it's not in your plan for the day. It's not within your eating window. Sometimes that's okay. You just have to listen to your body. So that's the nutrition piece. um, movement would be the next foundation. Getting people to move more. Yes, strength training is important. 100%. I think that's one of the big foundations, but also movement in your day to day, and it could look very different for people. Movement is like, I'm not sitting on the couch, I'm going for walks, or I'm going to walk to the destination versus drive. I like yours, the one thing you did with that step challenge where you would park your car purposefully all the way in the back so that you would have to walk all the way. You know, making these little decisions of movement and then also moving your body. It doesn't have to be crushing yourself in these long endurance endeavors. It just could be, I'm going to walk, I'm going to get a run in today. I'm going to do some I'm excited. I'm having somebody on the podcast today talking about animal flow, which I haven't done. I've done a little bit of it, but I did one class with this person and I'm doing these sit outs, these scorpion movements. I'm moving my body in ways that I haven't done in a very long time, like since wrestling. And I was like, my caboose, man, my glutes were sore the next day. And I'm like, I didn't even lift, but I'm just putting my body into these different movements, whether it's biking, whether it's running, maybe it's hiking, you know, doing those things. I think movement is essential in your life. And we can't just go to the gym lift, or even get your workout into the day and lift and just say, I checked the box. That's it. You get something called the athletic couch potato,
Mm.
where I crush my workout, man. You might have hit a PR, all this stuff. What do? You go home, you put on Netflix, and you sit the rest of the day and you just binge, or you like, I did this, so I'm gonna eat a deep dish pizza. I'm only using deep dish because we're in Chicago, which we don't really like. We like tavern style. Deep dish is not, you have deep dish when people come to visit. That's it.
Really? You're kidding?
No.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it first, people. People that get deep dish is typically the number one reason is because you have some friends coming from out of town.
That's hilarious.
It's
Wow.
all
No idea.
about tavern style, and we cut our pizza into squares. So that's like a big thing. We
Okay.
don't do it in
Nice.
triangles.
Okay.
But you'll have your deep dish pizza because you earned it, and you'll sit on the couch and you're just kind of canceling out what you did earlier. So if you can put movement in your day to day and make that a priority of making small decisions, walking places, adding a little, like a little bit of you want to do a short run, you want to get out and about, you want to hike, you want to bike, small decisions throughout the week of movement. I think that is huge. We can't just limit your exercising or your physical activity to the walls of the gym, because then that's the only place it's happening. No, it needs to be happening other places. So the movement is a big piece, and then recovery is something I fight with people, not fight with them, but like all the time. They want to go harder and harder and lift more and do more. It's like you're not giving your body enough time to recover. And I used to be in that mindset. Like if I skipped a day of working out, I would be like, I skipped, I couldn't make it today. So tomorrow I have to do a double. And it's just, that's an unsustainable way. That's not how the body works. You're going to have to make sure that after these workouts that you're actually recovering, and whether that be adding movement instead of like a hard strength training session, but also recovery within the workout. It's, what is the cost? What is the cost of your workout? If you're on the floor at the end of the workout, and I'm all for doing hard things. I'm all for doing hard things. But to every day do this Metcon at the end of the workout where you're on the floor panting and you're just absolutely crushed, over time, you are going to wear your body down. So with recovery inside of your programming is also huge, because I work with high school athletes and all they want to do is keep going heavier, heavier, heavier. And they haven't even worked on the skill yet. Like they're not even very good at the back squat or the bench press. And they get all excited because they want to keep going heavier. Like that just breeds injury.
Yep.
You're going to be sore the next day. You're not going to be able to train. So adding recovery into your daily routine, into your programming is essential. And I think that's why I've said these are the primal foundations. These are the 4 foundations that I like to cover with people, because if you have those foundations, your structure, your building, your body is going to be so much better
I
for the
love that.
long term, because this is not a 3-month thing. This is a 30-year thing.
I love that. Dude, I love that. I bumped into one of my clients' sons. He's about 19, 20 years old, at the gym, and he was doing bench press and he was loading it up, and I spotted him and we chatted for a little bit. He's like, yeah, in high school when I was playing football, I was able to do 3 plates on each side. I would love to get back to that. And I said, dude, that's really cool. Like, that's great. And you should have goals around strength. But let me tell you, like, I work with people who are my age, like turning 40, and they wanted to do those things also. And now they're dealing with injuries that they really regret because they were pushing number goals that at the end of the day nobody really cares about, to be able to get a certain number. Again, like it's cool, it's good, but just keep in mind that like you're going to have to deal with that later on, and you might not like the repercussions of doing something like that. You know what I mean?
I have a big problem with, I know he's out of high school now, but I have a big problem with coaches and metrics. They're so
Mm.
worried about the metrics. They're worried about the they have a shuttle run thing. How many times, like they think of like the combine. How many times can you bench 185? And that's what the kids like worry about. That's all they worry about. Nothing is developing skill. Nothing is, something that you're focused on for the long term. It's just like this number that the kids care about and how much they can lift to impress the football coach, the wrestling coach, whatever. They talk about the Cooper test. I think it's like a 2 mile, like within it, it's like 2 miles. And like that's for like a big for soccer. And people get so caught up on doing very good at the Cooper test. It's like, okay, can they play soccer? Can let's worry about that. We can get the endurance up and all those things. Let's not worry about the metric. Baseball players, I talk to them inside the weight room all the time, and that's a big thing. They're trying to hit these numbers and hit these things. They might have the crappiest form in the world, but as long as the weight went up on their back squat, as long as they stood it up, that's all that the coach cares about. It's like we're thinking this ass backwards. Like, let's develop long-term strength and get them strong in these areas that will transition into, your sport. You need to focus also on the sport. Yes, strength training, endurance is big, but like they still need to do the sport. So what do you care? I don't care if you have the best lineman in the country, but he doesn't bench the much, he doesn't bench as much as some other people. Does that mean he's not a good lineman anymore? But he's good on the field. He shows up, does his job, is a difference maker. I don't care what they bench. I don't care. And so I get like again, it's this number thing that people get. They're so into the data. There's points to it, but it's too much like a money ball thing. Like, can he hit? Can he hit? Like, yeah, can he field? Can he, is he a good teammate? Can they help their team, what's their body language like? All those things. I'm a coach, so like I get like those are the things that I get fired up on. It's like I care more about how they're affecting the team, how they're contributing, how they're doing as a person versus the number of their back squat.
Yeah.
That is, it's nice to know. It's good things to work on, but you got to develop the technique. You got to develop the skill. Those things will be byproducts of that. The weights will go up as a byproduct, but you're doing them correctly. And like you said, that's why a lot of kids, I think that's why I still have like some back issues because we're doing hang cleans. I'm a freshman in high school. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
The coach was like, throw it up here. And I was like, okay, sure, you got it. And we're putting like, and everybody wants to, the ego in the weight room, they want to just load up the plates and they want to impress their friends. And I see it's all about impressing other people, getting back to that whole thing. Sometimes I stay with like a weight. I get kids who really like understand what I'm trying to do in the weight room. They'll stay with the same weight for 8 weeks. No progression. The volume will vary. It'll wave up and down. So it'll get a little bit easier, it'll get a little bit harder. It's a progression of those numbers and a regression, but the weight stays the same. So they're working on that skill with that weight, and they're not focused about adding. They're focused on how well am I doing the reps. And that is a game changer for kids.
I love that. I wish I would have had a PE teacher like you, dude. And if I remember correctly, I think Babe Ruth was really big into back squats, wasn't he? Wasn't he a huge like back squatter?
I don't know. He was into a lot of stuff. The great Bambino. You know what? I didn't know he pitched.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
wow.
Somebody's gonna fact check this, but I believe he also pitched.
That's amazing.
I was like, the Bambino.
The Bambino. That's awesome, dude. And all of us have, I think, coaches in this space. All of us have these kind of like buckets that we put things into, and they're all a little bit different. I love hearing how everybody kind of classifies things, and whether it's 4 foundations or 6 foundations or whatever. I think it's unique that you have both strength and movement as 2 kind of separate things. A lot of people, including myself, like if I'm doing an initial consultation, I kind of group everything into just movement and consider strength part of that. I really love yours having strength separate and not just the physical strength. It could also be the endurance strength to do an Ironman, like you said. It can also be the mental strength to get through a pandemic. There's lots of different ways to approach that. So I really love that you made that its own separate thing, which is another really good segue. You have a new project that you're starting up called the Strength Collective. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Strength Collective was just kind of is this a fun project? And I'm not doing a very good job of not marketing it or anything. It's just this little side thing that me and my friend Steve Carlson, who I've also had on the podcast, he's a Strong First instructor, just a good friend. I've known him for a very long time. And we want to do workshops to teach kettlebells. And not that the Strength Collective is just all about kettlebells, but the big focus is helping people get strong the right way. And when people grab kettlebells, there's this thing you see a kettlebell in a hotel room or a hotel gym, you see it at a box gym, all these things. It is a very technical tool and you can do so much with it, and that's all you need is a bell. However, when you get people to swing a kettlebell, it doesn't look good. It's like when I first started learning it, I thought I was doing it right. I was not doing it right. And the cleans, the presses, the Turkish get ups, those things, those take time to learn. And this is a space and programming for people to actually take the time and learn. We have a beginner 101 program that's somebody that has a bell at home to give them like the basics. The problem, you see these like crazy flows on Instagram of the kettlebell. People throw them over their heads and all. They look cool. Long-term strength, probably not. I get there's that movement piece in there. If that's something you want to do, cool. Um, but it's basically we get them to learn how to do a kettlebell swing. The We break down how to do a Turkish get up, because that's a lot of components, how to press properly, and also some accessory movements of doing, rack carries, how different lunges, how to press without your legs, doing a half kneeling press versus trying to stand up and do it. So it's just very basic. It's basic for a reason, because if you want to learn like future skills in kettlebell, you have to get these things down. So it's just designed to really hone in on how to swing, how to do a get up, how to do a press. Excuse me. And then now we're going to release something called the Forge, which is a 9-week program that is geared towards people who are advanced and how to because you can get a kettlebell, you look online, there's 1,000 programs out there. And what is the right one? We feel that we look at strength training as something that it has to be focused on skill, breaking down the movements and working on those things. And it has to be something that that could be sustainable and repeatable, because there's some hard workouts you can't repeat it in a day. You can't repeat it in a week. It's too much. Like, I don't think that's the right way to go. And for you to walk away feeling crushed every day, like we talked about earlier, is not my goal. My goal is to get you stronger and build the skill. So I feel like we do a pretty good job of, packaging those. They're on Train Heroic. We package them so that it's like really nice and neat for them. They can add their bell weights. We give them recommendations on what bells they should use. And everybody's going to have a different medium sized bell. Everybody's going to have a different small bell, a large bell, heavy bell. Um, but that's the overarching goal with the programs, to make it more accessible. But also, we've done a workshop. We want to do more. Again, this is like the side hustle. So we don't meet as often, but we want to get some workshops for just people who want to learn. But we also want to get workshops for trainers, so you don't have to go to do a Strong First or a whatever thing, a 3-day endeavor, pay thousands of dollars to go learn kettlebells for your clients. We want people to come get it's just like a nice little addition, add on tips and tricks, how to cue people into moving with a bell. And there's 1,000 cues out there, and I'm still learning. But just by me and Steve going back and forth with one another. He's picked up things from me. I picked up things from him. We did a workshop one day. A client did something completely different, and I was like, "That's awesome." I go, "Do that again. Show me what you just did." we were having people do Turkish get-ups, and the big thing is when you do Turkish get-up, their leg flies up. And so we put a yoga block there, or we have somebody put their foot there so they have something to like to push against so their foot
Yeah.
doesn't leave the floor, because that way it's more of a hip roll, and they don't do like a crunch. So that there was like an odd number out, and I didn't notice it at the time. So she just went against the wall, and she like put her foot against the wall and was doing the movement, just getting up to her elbow with the wall. I was like, were you just using the wall? And she was like, yeah. She goes, there was another person. I didn't want to tell you that. So I just went to the side and did it. I go, do that again. And she did. I was like, okay, guys, we're not partnering it up anymore. Everybody find a wall or a post. And that way people got twice as much instruction. I was like, that is super cool. I'm using this from now on. But learning, different cues, different things for as a trainer that is interested in kettlebells and not having to do this big endeavor of a workshop. I think that me and Steve are pretty passionate about making sure that if we're teaching kettlebells, we're doing it the right way.
I love it, man. So a younger version of trainer of myself, me, like I would have stepped in and corrected that woman and said, you're doing it incorrectly. Now, as long as I know that somebody is not going to get hurt, I never really correct them. I let them do it. And if they come up with a new exercise, forevermore, that exercise is called their name. So we have a Lori press. I've got a Breck press. I've got a few clients who have made stuff up over the years where I'm like, wow, that's actually really good. We're going to keep that. And it's named after you. Congratulations.
We again, yeah, when you're younger, you want to think you know it all, and you think if you don't know it all, that it takes away from you're not a professional. I think it's more professional if you admit I don't know everything.
Yep.
I don't know everything, and be willing to change your mindset on certain things or change perspective is the sign of a professional, because you're not going to know it all. It's
That's right.
just too much. And if you think you know it all, I'm sure there's way more to learn.
Yep.
I'm still learning, even though I have certifications. I have a plethora of years in the industry. I'm still learning and getting better every day. And if I don't know something, I'll even say like, I'm not too sure about that. Or,
Love
hey,
that.
have you heard about this protocol? I don't really know about that. I can look into it. I'm not sure, because you're not going to know everything.
That's right. That's right. Well, can you believe that we've been talking for over an hour now?
Oh, snap.
Dude, I love talking to you. And on that note, like just the way you progress through so many different things, from vegan to going carnivore to even saying like, I don't even know if carnivore is the very best for everybody. Like you really do take that approach and you're always learning and progressing and changing your mind about things. And you're right. I think that is a sign of a professional, and you are a true professional, my friend. Like I love the work that you do. I love how sincere it is. And a lot of this stuff you just are like giving away. You're just doing like sessions for people because they want, or people can just call or text you and you'll respond to them. Like it's so savage what you're doing, and you're not asking for permission. You're just going out and doing it. It's not your main job. It's not your breadwinner. It's cool, man. It's really inspiring. So I'm so grateful for you and your journey, and so grateful that you take time out of your day to come back on our show and update us on everything I'm sorry, strength collective. Did I get that right?
The Strength Collective with a K, because
Strength collective with a K.
we're trying to be cool.
I love that. See, I would have gotten that wrong. So there you go. The Strength Collective sounds like an amazing value that's going to help a ton of people. So, Tony, this has been awesome. Tell people where they can go to find you and connect with you and your work.
Yeah, so they can go to primalfoundations.com, and on there I just have, you have access to booking a consultation. And I know we've talked earlier, if people want to reach out to me, it's a free 30-minute consultation to either talk about strength training or nutrition. I'm always there to help. And you can find me on Instagram at Tony_Primal Foundations.
Excellent. We will link all of that. Like I said, it's been an absolute joy to chat with you and get updates on everything that's going on. And yeah, again, it's super inspiring to learn about what you're doing and how you're helping people out there. So thank you so very much, Tony, for taking the time and coming on our show today. We really appreciate you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.